24,000 crores. So with that 24,000 crores, we are able to now decrease our dependency on final module import by almost 80%. So now 70 to 80% of our domestic consumption is coming from domestic manufactured modules only. But that is the beginning of the story. As you go back into the value chain, module is made from cells. Cells are made from wafer. Wafer comes from ingot. Ingot comes from polysilicon. Polysilicon, you should mine the pods. So this entire value chain, India is now planning to shift that entirety into our country. So in that entire value chain of 0 to 10, if you ask me, we are currently at around 6 in terms of energy independence or Atmanirbharta. Maybe by 2028, we will get into around 8. And by 2930, almost 100% of full dependency on domestic
No, no, so no, no.
supply
You're
chain
you're,
will
you're
be.
saying a very big thing, but you are saying it like an expert. So let's dumb it down for people watching the broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, again in the entire history of India, okay, from my parents' generation to grandparents' generation, we have been a country of dependencies. Up until the 1960s, we couldn't even feed ourselves. So you had to get this low quality PL 480 wheat from the Americans, and you didn't have foreign exchange to pay them, so you paid them in rupees, and they built themselves nice baseball stadiums in the American embassy here, because where else would they spend the rupees? So we went from that dependency. Then you had the Green Revolution. Today, India does not even feed itself. We've had in the last year record, all-time record wheat production, all-time record rice production, all-time record procurement by government, all-time record vegetable production. It's we more than feed ourselves, so much so that we are exporting food all over the world and including the United States of America, where we, believe it or not, are the largest exporters of shrimp into the US. And I couldn't believe it that some of this shrimp is being harvested and grown in Punjab. Who would have thought? So that's very happy news. But there are two other dependencies. Ajay Dua, in our entire lifetime, sir, the two biggest strains on the exchequer, and you've seen them firsthand, the two biggest strains on our foreign exchange reserve: number one, energy; number two, defense. Now, in energy, 50% of our power needs are coming from renewables. We've now done 20% ethanol mixing. I know there are some issues, technical issues still on that. But are we looking that there is a foreseeable future that we are not dependent on foreign oil and gas?
Rishabh, while I entirely share your optimism as well as of Mr. Pulipaka about the solar energy, there are certain issues of coordination still pending. Apart from the fact that we are importing a lot of cells, etc., from China, continued dependence upon it. But at the same time, in order to have the grid balance, you need to have a certain amount of renewable energy only, which can go into the grid. So it has to keep a ratio with the conventional energy. So we are backing down actually taking of renewable energy. PPAs are being delayed in signing for new solar power stations. But all these, I call it as work in progress. So somewhere things will get coordinated as we go further, because that's the future. The future is going to be renewable, sorry, not renewable and not fossil fuels, and it should not also be hydrocarbons, which we will continue to import, and we cannot afford it because of the constraint on foreign exchange, etc. Having said that, how do we really go forward? One means, I think, which the budget last year hinted at, and I do expect a greater kind of concentration on this, or greater attention being given to it, would be the small modular reactors, nuclear reactors. Last year, 20,000 crores were provided in the budget for component making in India for the SMRs. I expect that the emphasis would continue this year. And it is likely to happen because we've also been able to pass just last month in the parliament the Shanti Act, which allows private sector to come into nuclear energy, and also we have been able to meet the concerns of the providers of nuclear energy in terms of their liability being limited. Earlier, they were all very afraid. That's why, despite the agreement, our
Okay.
opening up to civilian power, we were not able to do that.
Okay, so let
Or
me put that in context for our viewers. This civil nuclear liability clause, this debate has been going on since the Indo-US nuclear deal. Uh, when I was in college, this debate started. I have got grey hair, and India's nuclear projects haven't gone anywhere primarily because of this. But as Dr. Dua mentioned, that's about to change. The technology is changing, it's becoming more reliable, it's becoming more plug and play. The SMR is something that you can put outside a data center and doesn't have to be on a particular plant. And then you can add as many as you like. So the technology is changing, the ownership structure, investment structures, and liability structures have changed. So this is going to be part of the puzzle. But does it equate the multi-billion-dollar question that forget our lifetimes, in the foreseeable future, you can't eliminate oil and gas, petroleum, because plastics and etc. other industries, allied industries also depend on petrochemicals. So you can't make it zero. But can your energy mix with electrification, the EVs, two-wheelers, EV buses, potentially EV trucks with a little bit of hydrogen in the mix, with solar powering all the EVs, with the ethanol, can you get into a zone where your transportation infrastructure is not dependent on hydrocarbons, whether they come from Russia or they come from Venezuela is a larger question. So last thought on this with Mr. Pulipaka, then I want to go back into the budget expectations. This budget is not going to be the mover and shaker, and the reason budgets are not movers and shakers are because economic policy no longer waits for the budget, which is a great thing for the country. So don't expect the sun, moon and the earth today. A lot of the things we already know are about to happen. A lot of the fine tuning details is what you'll get from the speech. So everything's not going to change. But Mr. Pulipaka, in a practical sense, are we seeing that paradigm shift, like economists want to call? There's something in the energy market, something dramatically new is here.
Definitely. In fact, when you're talking about how a dependency on oil and gas imports will be going away or not, there was a new research, one of the largest think tanks in Asia came out with, that is India transitioning to a electro state from a petro state? And the evidence is very clear. We need energy for electricity, mobility, industry, and agriculture. And each of these four sectors, slowly, electricity is replacing our petrol or oil intense or gas intense intensity that is existing. So there will be a point of time where in all these four sectors, electricity, of course, mobility, you rightly mentioned, industry, the transition is about to happen, agriculture, we are getting there. More or major chunk of our energy consumption in these four sectors is going to come from renewable energy, which will help us in two parts. One, our import dependency will definitely decrease, and attached import dependency of our burden on exchequer will decrease. Now, your question on what is whether we are at a paradigm shift era, are we at an inflection point? We are definitely at an inflection point. We are at an inflection point that has never happened before. And I know you like this analogy if I tell this. In the next 6 years, from February 26 to maybe February 2031, we are going to install more renewable energy than we have installed in the total electricity capacity in the first 65 years of our independence. So if this is not an inflection point, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, like
so
I mentioned, it's currently doubling faster than gold, and that's saying a lot right now. That is relatable. So we've doubled solar capacity in 2 years. Believe it doubled, not increased. It doubled in 2 years. The scale of it is. You have to see the photographs of these solar power parks. Oh my God, they are massive. Can you imagine? Of the world's, I mentioned 5 largest, 2 are in India: Gujarat, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu. They're coming up like never before, and we haven't noticed this. But I am still of the generation that remembers power cuts regularly in the national capital. It was perfectly normal not to have power for 12 hours, days. Everybody had a gen set at home. Everyone had to have an inverter to last for 2-3 hours just to manage the night somehow. That generation, the new generation doesn't know that. It's not wholly true everywhere, and those are generally transmission problems. We export power now to neighboring countries, one of which currently doesn't seem to want ours. We know what's happening in Bangladesh. Okay, hold your thought, because there's lots to discuss here. And the reason there is to discuss here, because when you talk about fundamental shifts, here, mobile phone in my hand. Now, if you want to be fundamentally different, in this mobile phone, the critical components are the screen, the battery, and the silicon. None of these three things are currently made in India. If you further go into it, for the battery, the lithium has to be found. In 2025, India opened its first lithium mine. First lithium mine has been opened somewhere near Chhattisgarh. We are doing lithium prospecting now in Leh Ladakh. So you have to have the inputs of all the components before you become a truly a manufacturer, but we for sure have become the assembler. So let me get Vaibhav Jain back into this conversation. Vaibhav ji, now let's look at the rough and tumble. I've discussed the larger picture. Here we are. The finance minister is going to give us a lot of the devil in the detail, because as I said, government policy, economic policy, trade policy, commerce policy, none of it waits for the budget anymore. So the devil in the detail, what are you watching out for?
I think we have Income Tax Act 2026, which is taking a kickoff from 1st April 2026, which is already tabled. Income Tax 2025, pardon me.
Yeah.
After 6 decades, we are replacing the income tax law. This is again a very big reform, may not be as big as the GST. But we have seen a lot of aspects of income tax being rewritten, which of course may increase some interpretation issues. But a lot of stakeholder feedback has gone. And I see definitely, some detailed amendments which the government has waited and they have not done it while rewriting the law, which we will see on the table. So I think people on the tax professional side, they're going to be very busy after Madam's speech.
Okay. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Okay, it depends on which perspective you're looking at from. Vinod ji, on the devil in the detail, because the broader policy strokes we have, there will be a theme to this budget. There always is. But the broader policy strokes we generally already have. We've prepared ourselves for the trade hit with the GST cuts and the FTAs. Those will play themselves out. GST has already had an impact. But on the devil in the detail, what are you watching out for?
Yes, I've already mentioned that this is not arithmetical. We should not look at from that angles only, that it is only the tax rates cut or something of standard deductions, ATC deduction, new regime or the old regime. This is mainly the growth in infrastructure in the capex. That is most important at this time. As you have shown the phone and you have told the 3 stories, that the screen, the battery, nothing is being produced in India. Now it is time that we have to incentivize, we have to call for the investments to be invested in India so that we can produce this in our own country. Like Apple has already shifted their phone manufacturing here. Now it is time for the manufacturing industries to come back. We have to go back into the 91 era. I think I'm of that your generation, that when the power cuts were normal and all these things we gone off. We have seen all these crashes and all in our life. And then we had the COVID. So lots of things we are expecting on the side of manufacturing incentives. We are expecting that we will be getting it. And with that, the stock market and all stability will be there. And good money is going to be made in next coming 5 years. Stay tuned. I think this is the high time for this country. Now all the base which has been created in last few years, this will go double. As Mr. Pulipaka was saying, that it has doubled in last 10 years, in 65 years versus 10 years. Similar story is going to happen in all the industries in coming 10 years. This is my expectation.
Okay,
this is my
so for people watching the
I
broadcast, just to put that into context, Apple exported $20 billion of iPhones out of India. Okay, that means they were assembled here in India, all components were made here. But $20 billion, this is despite the fact that there were Trump tariffs. They literally had to go to the White House to get an exemption, because up until a couple of years ago, it was China +1, that diversify away from China. So they diversified to India. Then, of course, well, like I said, Donald Trump happened. So putting that aside, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching Newsx for long enough time, you know that for years, almost a decade, we've been talking about we need to build the semiconductors, we need to build the semiconductors, we need to build the semiconductors. Every device that you're watching this telecast and every device you will watch the finance minister's speech on has semiconductors inside it. Okay. Currently, there are 8 major semiconductor manufacturing plants, chip manufacturing plants under construction in India. Adani is into the game, Micron is into the game, Tatas are deeply into the game. From the northeast to Gujarat, all over the country they're being built. Now, this has to click into place. The dividends will then come next year. The construction capex phase that he was just talking about, that comes in next year. So, I mentioned we started lithium mining for the first time. India had its first startup battery manufacturer start 2 years ago. We don't make the screens. Even Apple doesn't make the screens. Samsung and LG make all the screens and all the TVs and all the phones everywhere in the world. But they don't make them in India. They still assemble them in India. So let me put that question to Mr. Raval. To Mr. Gupta. Mr. Gupta, there is a larger picture here. But this is also today going to, I suspect, today is going to be more about the devil in the detail than something dramatic. What are you watching out for?
See, that's true. Every year we see this is to be done, this is to be done. So why don't the finance minister should give a new system that we should have a quarterly budget monitoring system? That what we were expecting, what we have done. See, in the Beva was saying there are a lot of things to be changed in the income tax, but we need to see there are different anomalies where there are disproportionate changes. Like corporate, you are charging income tax at the rate of 22%, whereas in the partnership firm, which is old ancient system of India, LLP and individual at the top level income, you are charging more than 30% income. So how this should reduce? One side, Indian government is offering free medical to all the aged people in the Ayushman Yojana. And on the other side, you are not giving good benefit to the mediclaim. That means who are claiming to own their own medical expenses. One side, you want to give all education free. And on the other side, those who are financing their educational cost by getting in education in public school, you are not even ready to give the deduction. So, and one side you want to give lifetime pension to the employee, government employee, every day, and even the spouse of the employee. Even after death of the employee, you give the pension. So, after 30 years of service, you give 30, 40 years of pension, but you don't try to give any retirement benefit to the unstructured domestic maid, domestic servant, and driver, cook, gardener, etc.
Okay.
There is no plan to link with the PPF that there should be a mandatory system that you are paying some 6,000 per hour salary to your domestic help. So you need to deposit 5% in his account directly. It may be added in the e-Shram account or whatever way, but we should make it mandatory. You are leaving, I mean, not less than 3-4% of the entire country's population without any future security. So one side you are very keen, every year they are commissioned to see the salary revision, and one side you are not doing anything. There is no minimum salary for the domestic help for the small people. So these things finance minister has, not only this Nirmala madam, otherwise nobody has taken care. So we need to see these ground realities. Yes, mobile manufacturing, I want to say on mobile, every salaried person has to have a mobile. It is his duty. Even my driver has to have his mobile. But he is not getting any income
Okay,
tax
so let's have a
deduction.
practical conversation on this. Manish Gupta ji, for people watching the broadcast, many of whom will be salaried persons, right? And the biggest gripe of salaried persons is that first they pay tax on their income, then they pay tax on the taxed income every time they have to buy something. Now, the reality check is if you were to incorporate yourself, okay, if I was going to create Rishabh Gulati Inc. and I made a company around myself, okay, I could write off a lot more expenses and come under a lower tax bracket. That's how the rich people do it. Everything, the house, the gadi, everything is owned by the company, nothing is owned personally. And everything then has depreciation and everything is written off as an expense much greater than what you can do as an individual, certainly not as a salaried person. So Manish ji, should we all incorporate ourselves?
Well, not exactly all, but we should take one by one, because in India we have seen we have observed that many people tend to make it as income tax saving or tax evasion practice. So we need to think carefully which item I should consider. See, at today's time, mobile phone is a need. And one has to have mobile, so we should give the deduction for mobile. Either there should be a standard deduction or otherwise. In the past, we have seen that in a government want to simplify the process of income tax, but you cannot ignore these complexities, these need. So we need to have a system of combination where we should have a simple income tax system, but we should not disregard the education tax benefit on education, tax benefit on
Okay,
medical,
so
tax benefit
I
on
don't want to
mobile
throw the
inflation.
baby out with the bathwater, because again, I've been in that generation that's seen the transition happen. My father's a chartered accountant, so I've seen the transition that in my working life, my tax return is filed online, and within a day or two, the refund comes. And I don't even have to go to anywhere, meet anyone. That's a dramatic change. It's a huge deal. Let's not kid ourselves. But then these strange things happen that individual salaried people, pay tax on tax. And the richest people in the world, if you can follow this, it's very easy to do so. The riches are never held in bank accounts, they're all held in stocks. So if you're a billionaire, it's because you own X percentage of a multi-billion-dollar company. Until you sell those stocks, you pay no taxes. So what you do is you borrow against those stocks. On loans, you pay no taxes. So when Donald Trump's tax returns were leaked before the last presidential election, do you know how much tax he was paying as a billionaire in the US? $750 per year.
Oh my God.
And the guy who's leaked the tax returns is currently in jail and he's been sued by Donald Trump, but $750 he was paying, and that applies to all of them. Donald Trump will tell you that I happily manipulate the system because it's been designed for rich people like me. Capitalism works like that. But India is not just about capitalism. So let me look at the other side of the pie as well with Ajay Dua. Ajay Dua, simultaneously, we have been delivering since COVID to 800 million people per month free ration. We are nearing saturation in government schemes that were meant to provide free housing, or at least a pakka ghar to every citizen, tap water to every citizen, power to every citizen. It's nearing toilets, your LPG gas. It's nearing saturation, which means nearly 100% it's reaching. So on the welfare side of things, are we doing okay, and what can we do better?
Rishabh, $1 million question. Since we are talking of millions and billions, all that I would like to say, we are on the right path. The fact that we are looking for beneficiaries nowadays for these schemes has two sides to it. One, people have waited for long enough. They have made their own arrangements if they find that the state meaning center, provinces, all the governmental bodies are not able to reach them. Second, there is an issue right now in each of the terms, each of the things which you mentioned, of there being finer calibration. Do we really need to give 5 kilograms of food per month, grains per month, to 800 million people out of 135 which we have in the country? Or should we be concentrating on first the 20% or the people who are still below the poverty line, then the people who are in the BPL families, and not cover those who are above it? The number would then come
Dr.
down.
Dua, you're getting into a very tricky place, because you know better than me that the reason we distribute the grains is because the government is forced to buy the grains, because there is a resistance to let the open market purchase the grains. So the government is stuck with so many stockpiles of grains. What else to do better than give it away for free? So you know the
Rishabh,
problem here. If
you
we
have a
let the
point.
market
Let
sort it
me.
out, maybe the farmers would benefit. But as soon as I mention farmers, it becomes a hot potato issue.
No, so what? This is the point I was coming to, that you have to be producing the goods or the produce for which there is a market. Not the fact that we've been producing extra wheat, we've been producing excessive rice in the off the late, but these are need to be substituted by other crops. We have to look at where is our water going, irrigation water going. Is it going to water intensive crops or the ones which will bring about better value added? You have to visit. We cannot be avoiding whatever, Rishabh, you might say. I'll not agree with that, the fact that in the country, when 700 million people are still dependent on rural areas, and agriculture is the vocation, we have to be addressing the issues of agriculture. Whatever might be the resistance or others, our productivity, we are producing more not because our productivity is high. We are 30% less productive than the Chinese farmer. We are the and yet we are talking about how to get rid of extra food. Don't produce it.
Okay.
Produce something else in
Okay,
agriculture.
okay. So we'll
It is
agree that at
also
least it's
agriculture.
better than letting the food rot in the FSI go down. So that's a bad idea. But what do you do? It is a circular anomaly in this country that you are in record food production, and yet people don't have enough to eat, and the people who don't have enough to eat are the poorest, who happen to be part of the record food production, the farmers. I'm not talking about the industrial farmers, the people who drive Mercedes, okay, and who own 10,000 acres. Generally, the poor farmers are the farmer laborers who don't own the land but have to rely on agricultural income, which is a tough one. And you want to get into another hot potato, try taxing agricultural income. Okay, a lot of politicians also think that they are all agriculturalists, all farmers. You'll find that as well. These are hot potato issues. But let's take the other issue, Ajay Dua, which is mentioned here, which, let me sum it up in a singular phrase: social security. Now, in this country, we are saying, okay, for the first time, we are giving insurance, health insurance, accident insurance. So the people who, if somebody in your family had an accident or fell sick, you literally had to sell your zameen for treatment. There is a safety net now. This now applies. Think if you're retired and 70 plus, almost impossible to get health insurance from the private sector. That is now being guaranteed by government, because people, yes, are living longer. Therefore, the health needs, medicinal needs are increasing, and the last thing you want is medical bills when you're on a pension or relying on limited resources, no longer earning. So, are we building towards something, some sort of social security net, which was being discussed right before this?
Yes, of the four labor codes, which the government reiterated this time, having passed these in 2020. The laws were passed in 2020, then referred to the states. There is a hiatus now for almost 6 years, but the government did show the extraordinary courage to bring these back, and I'm hoping that they will come into force, and that the exercise of making the rules, that is where it is stuck. That the Labour Ministry of the Government of India, now it's called Labour and Employment Ministry, they have to notify the rules as soon, and 6 months have been sought by the Labour Secretary, 2 months are over out of it.
Yes.
She made that effect. So I'm hoping that these four labor codes will get announced. They will come into force. What would happen is, because it's a concurrent list subject, the state government laws on the rules on the subject, laws on the subject would have to be better than the central provisions. Otherwise, the central provisions will apply in case of conflict if any state government tries to bring about the
Yes.
norms or dilute the norms. So that's a very good thing.
Yes,
You
but
should-
but again, I'm not. Yeah, you can have the other side of the argument as well, that even a person who's working in the gig economy, which I'm assuming that this budget is going to cover, and I'm going to come and discuss this after the break, or as has been discussed, that a person who's a domestic help, maybe a driver, do those people in that economic bracket also want to decide what they want to do with their money? Maybe they want to invest in the mutual fund, or do they want it to go in a pension account?
No,
I
they
don't
don't
know.
go for
Again,
the-
I'm traversing a generation here. The traversing a generation means I remember the concept of post office savings. All right. The people who went to post office savings were people who had no hope in hell of even having a bank account. Now almost everybody in this country has Jan Dhan accounts. One thing is for sure, that from all the news coverage that I've seen in the past 1 week, including the parts that we have done, we no longer are showing you a graphic of onion prices for this budget. That's how the country has changed. Instead, in the past 1 week, the biggest news interest has been that will these German cars become cheaper after the FTA? Can you believe it? That's been the biggest news interest of the stories that we do, the greatest virality, that will the Skoda or the BMW or the Mercedes become cheaper in India? Lot of interest in these things. We've come a long way to go. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm going to take a short break, 2 minutes. We're back with you.
अब छोलिया हो या लोबिया, सफेद चने या काले चने,
सब कुछ मजेदार बने।
लाल रंग इसका अपार, तीखा कम है फिर भी स्वाद, बेमिसाल बेमिसाल MDH कश्मीरी,
MDH कश्मीरी।
MDH।
अब आया असली स्वाद।
अब आया स्वाद।
जब स्वाद के पड़े हो लाले तो MDH का चंकी चाट मसाला डालें। MDH का चंकी चाट मसाला।
MDH।
सस्ते वाले दाल मसाले स्वाद हुआ बेकार। MDH की हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया करे कमाल। ये रंग दे, ये खुशबू दे, ये तीखा, ये कम पड़े। क्या निराला MDH मसाला।
कभी खेलों के मानचित्र पर उत्तर प्रदेश सिर्फ संभावनाओं का नाम था, पर 2017 के बाद संभावनाएं संरचना बनी। जनपदों में स्टेडियम, ब्लॉकों में मिनी स्टेडियम और गांव में मैदान। खेल अब शहरों तक सीमित नहीं रहे। लखनऊ से मेरठ, वाराणसी से अयोध्या, ग्रेटर नोएडा से गोरखपुर, मैदानों पर सिर्फ खिलाड़ी नहीं, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय इवेंट्स उतरे। खेलो इंडिया, यूनिवर्सिटी गेम्स, मोटो जीपी, डेविस कप, बैडमिंटन से लेकर खो खो तक उत्तर प्रदेश अब मेजबान भी है और दावेदार भी। प्रतिभाओं को मिला मंच, प्रशिक्षण और सम्मान। आज उत्तर प्रदेश खेलों में सिर्फ भाग नहीं लेता, दिशा तय करता है। यह है बदलाव की कहानी, मेहनत की पहचान और भविष्य की स्वर्णिम उड़ान। ये है आत्मविश्वास, लगन और विजय का गूंजता संदेश। ये है नया उत्तर प्रदेश।
MDH कसूरी मेथी लाजवाब है, लाजवाब है।
स्वाद और सुगंध इसकी
लाजवाब है, लाजवाब है।
अगर MDH कसूरी मेथी नहीं डाला
तो खाली हाथ मलते रह जाओगे।
एक एक पत्ता हाथ से चुना, स्वाद और सुगंध जगाए कई गुना।
MDH।
MDH की देगी मिर्च,
देगी मिर्च का तड़का, अंग अंग फड़का।
MDH की देगी मिर्च।
इसको तो फुटबॉल खेलना भी आ गया और इससे तो पियानो बजाने भी आ गया। चंद्रयान भी उतर गया चांद पर हमें अब तक टेस्टी राजमा बनाना नहीं आया।
बिना MDH राजमा मसाला के टेस्टी राजमा कैसे बनेगा?
स्वादिष्ट राजमा के लिए MDH राजमा मसाला।
क्या स्वादिष्ट राजमा बनाए?
MDH।
Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. I'm Rishabh Gulati. We are just few hours away from the Union Budget 2026. Now, the budgetary exercise, the speech is no longer the be all and end all of economic and policy. In a time when I was in nursery school, when what the finance minister would say would decide the fortunes of the industrialists and the people, because if quotas in one sector went up or went down, entire industrial units would have to shut down because of a license Raj. Those days are gone. Economic and trade policy, even tax policy, because indirect taxes are the bigger chunk of tax policy, no longer wait for the budget. When it comes to direct taxes, we've already seen changes last year, so don't expect big chunky headline change this year. Technical changes here and there, devil in the detail, is certainly going to happen. So what does this budget need to be about? We don't know what it's going to be about, but we can logically postulate what it should be about. It has to be about investment in core sectors, investment in capex, investment in infrastructure. Because, ladies and gentlemen, here's the good news. Although we shall never be satisfied, nor shall we deign to become the kind of people who are always satisfied, but the country is doing okay. GDP growth very healthy, predicted at 7%, currently going at 8%, inflation at 2.5%, pretty good. Fiscal deficit under 5 at 4.2%, doing great. Foreign exchange reserve $700 billion, looks good. Everything looks pretty okay. But I'm still concerned. Microsoft lost $400 billion last year. I've lived through 2008, okay? So I've seen financial bubbles, not of our making, not of our fault, sweep through us, okay? We are not yet big enough, and we can never be disconnected enough for that to be relevant. I don't know what's happening with gold and silver prices. They're all over the place, okay? Certainly gold should not be going up that hard. That tells you a fundamental global realignment is happening, that institutions and central banks are selling US Treasury bonds and buying gold and putting the gold on top of planes and getting those planes and putting them into vaults in Mumbai. There's a fundamental global realignment. Now, do we expect a fundamental global realignment to happen without any impact on anything, just smooth? Maybe, maybe not. And what do we do? You know, there's a movie called The Sound of Music. Many of you would have seen it as children. And it has a song, how do we solve a problem like Maria? So in a world of how do we solve a problem like Donald Trump, we don't have answers of what is happening next. He's been quiet for a few days because right now they're busy with Minnesota and Epstein files and whatnot. So they're a bit busy domestically right now. But what he comes up with the next few days, we don't know what that might be. And how that either shakes or manipulates global trade in the markets, we don't know. Okay. Alberta is the latest one in Canada, believe it or not. So there is a larger global picture. It looks great. Everything looks fine. 6 months of US tariffs haven't sunk us. The FTAs that we have signed will take 1 year to benefit us. Everything looks like it's heading in the right direction. Fingers crossed. All right. But something dodgy seems to be going on in world markets. $3 trillion in capex, nearly 50%, more than 50% of India's GDP is what just 3 or 4 companies plan to spend. Where's the money coming from? And is that money going to show a return? I don't know. Does it look like a bubble? Yeah, it kind of does. Seen it before. Ranjit Mehta joining us on the broadcast. He's CEO and Secretary General of the PhD Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Sumit Peer is with us. Gaurav Agarwal joining us as well. Let's pick up this conversation. Ranjit ji, so the country seems to be going okay. I think this is going to be more about devil in detail. So let me ask you a practical question. Since you represent chambers that has a lot of SMEs in it, there has been a bite, sir, in certain sectors, textiles, shrimps, many other sectors, of the tariffs. Now, overall the country is doing well, but some sectors have been hurt hard. They are yet to realize the benefits of the FTA. So, what do we need for those export-oriented sectors today, sir?
Thank you very much, Rishabh. It's always a pleasure to be with you here. In fact, this budget is coming at the moment when there are so many expectations. The expectations are not for populism, but the expectations are for priorities and precision. The growth momentum of Indian industry or the growth momentum of India's economy, in fact, it needs to convert into inclusive and predictive outcomes. That's what is really required. Now, you really said about this MSMEs. Yes, due to recent tariff developments, our MSMEs more than 7 crore MSMEs, 70 million MSMEs in our country, they have been hardest hit, especially in textile sector, gems and jewelry, and engineering in all these sectors. But the question is that government has definitely taken a very proactive approach on this. We have diversified our markets because many countries, we cannot, the time has come, the world order is changing, the global order is changing. We cannot depend on one single economy. The recent FTAs like FTA with UK, FTA with the EU, the mother of all FTAs as they call it, and FTA with Oman, New Zealand, all these FTAs have opened doors for Indian MSMEs. But it is going to take some time when they develop this market. For this, I think in the new export mission, what MSMEs require today is the hand holding. Because the small businesses, suppose there is a big fair in any of these countries, MSMEs cannot take part on their own. So for this, I think export promotion mission should have definitely market access initiative assistance that can give some kind of subsidy and that can help those MSMEs to participate in those markets, in those fairs, international fairs, so that they can display their product and get the business. And I think, secondly, one of the biggest challenges of MSMEs has been the finance. How to get the easy finance. Not only easy, but how can they get on
okay, so Ranjit, sorry to interrupt you, but let me just dissect this into straight questions. Are you aware of companies who were exporting? I am certainly aware of people, especially in textiles. You mentioned gems and jewelry, whose primary market, which means 60-70% more of their exports were all going to the US. Are you aware of these people being badly burnt? Are there some companies in trouble?
Many companies who were really doing business with US for last many decades, they have been definitely burnt, and those companies, they had to really lay off their employees. Their businesses have been very badly affected. But at the same time, I think the discussions, the many interactions with the Commerce Ministry, we have been able to give them some kind of new market access.
Okay.
And now the government
so practically, so the EU-India EU trade deal is going to take some time to be ratified. So you expect it to actually kick off in January next year, which will be a remarkable achievement. Okay, if it kicks off in less than 1 year, there are 5 grades for the EU Parliament to ratify it. It will happen. The political will to make it happen is there, but it will take a few months. So, Mr. Mehta, how many of these people, these entities, these companies, their CEOs, their founders, some of them are family-run enterprises, how many of them are now looking, as you mentioned, now trying to find clients in the EU? It won't happen immediately, but how many of them are being able to pivot?
You see, they have been trying. In fact, people have been visiting in business delegations to UK, UAE, and Oman. We have taken many delegations in these places. They are definitely searching. They are definitely exploring the new markets, new clients. But this business takes time. So the best thing is that what they are doing is right now they are diversifying. They are looking for the market, but the problem is very, very serious. It is like the biggest problem for MSMEs is they cannot really, as far as their finances, their loans, all these things are concerned, definitely the liquidity crunch is there.
Yeah, cash flow.
The cycle has
cash flow is the biggest problem. The future is okay, but the problem is that you have to worry about this year. If the company can't survive a year because of cash flow, then what happens 5 years later long term doesn't make a difference, because the company is gone and it's ruinous. So yes, in Europe, it's not just about the tariffs. There's something called non-tariff barriers, the quality control, and their standardized standards. You have to get through all these regimes as well. You have to then, of course, have the practical things in business, which is client relationships, which you have to rebuild. If they were primarily in North America, have to shift to Europe. So yes, can our textile industry now take down the Bangladeshi textile industry because the tariffs now have equalized? Yes, absolutely. Will it happen? Yes, absolutely. But it's going to take a couple of years. So this budget, Mr. Mehta, has to be about providing for these export-oriented sectors for the next 1 or 2 years while this all kicks off, and then the markets can take care of themselves.
Absolutely, Rishabh. In fact, the budget must give some kind of interest subvention, and also the monetization of those loans which are for the industry people right now, because today in 90 days an MSME can become NPA if the loans are not cleared. Though we have been demanding that the payment cycle goes a little longer, we have demanded for around 180 days for this particular NPA regulation. However, this is under consideration. I think during these difficult times, the government will definitely look into
Okay.
this.
Last quick question before I go to Gaurav. Ranjit ji, the other thing you already mentioned is cost of capital. India's have the highest 12, 14, 15%. If you are a very small company, can be even higher than that. Okay, that's insane. For many decades in Japan, the cost of capital was negative. Interest rates were negative. So we have the highest interest rates in the world, so much so that foreign players just do interest arbitrage with us. Ranjit ji, is that an exercise that we can't do anything about, because our savings rate is dictated that we also want our 7% from our fixed deposit. So by default, the loan rates are going to be 10, 11%. Is there anything we can do about it?
What we can do is, earlier there was a scheme called interest subvention scheme, especially for pre-shipment and post-shipment for the MSMEs. That interest subvention scheme has been discontinued in December 2024. If that scheme of around 3% on interest subvention for these MSMEs can be given, that will be an excellent thing. And secondly, I think government has launched a credit card, for MSMEs. I think that will also be very, very useful. At the same time, they have come out with collateral, free loans that is guaranteed by the government of India. What is lacking is probably the implementation on the ground. When an MSME goes for a loan to the bank, still they insist on collateral security. However, CGSTs, their government guarantees it. There's a scheme, so that probably the implementation needs little more stricter rules. What we have suggested is, if there can be some kind of helpline for such people where they are facing some problem, maybe RBI can come out with some helpline so that the help can be provided to them with the particular bank. This is there.
No, of course, it cuts both ways. Companies that are just having a cash flow problem and they need a loan, either just to a working capital loan, or they require for capex investment. That's a good thing. That's what economic activity requires. Investment is driven by loans. But at the same time, we've had in this country a culture of taking loans and just doing nothing with it, and converting yourself into an MPA, and nothing will happen. Well, there's been some good news on that front, because India's NPAs, after the cleaning up of the financial architecture, the NNPAs have come down to less than 0.5% of the banking sector assets. It was nearly 9% a few years ago. A shocking amount of money. Okay, disturbingly large amount of money, and a lot of them have been forced to be written off. So India's financial system seems to be healthier. So let me get a different perspective on this. Let's start from the theme that we're discussing. Gaurav Agarwal, on the aspect of this middle point for the people who are exporting to the United States of America, where they have having to deal with first uncertainty for several months, now tariffs for 6 months. The benefits of the diversification of FTAs will only come sometime next year. What happens in between?
So, Rishabh, this is a very pertinent question which you have raised, and let me tell you that the exporters who are expecting exporting to US have really turned down. So their turnover, which were majorly dependent on the US exports, have really gone down, and they are not getting any business from anywhere. I am telling you the practical problem on the line. Because see, every exporter is having the clients not from, but it's a long-term business. It's not a short-term business. So when we talk about that getting the business from any other part of the world, it becomes difficult for the exporters to make it as soon as possible. So now they are finding the buyers from the other country. Now the very pertinent question is that when they go and look for more buyers, now the pressure comes for the pricing. Because see, if you are the person that you have to sell more, you have to compromise on the pricing part. Then again, it comes to the question of cost of capital, which you are raising, that the cost of capital in India is so high that that offering a product below cost becomes a problem for the business owner. But he doesn't have any choice. He has to run the show. So in that case, they are struggling with the losses. They are struggling with the things, and down the line they are bound to sell before below the prices, which I can tell you because I am
Okay,
dealing with the
I'm sorry
business
to
on a day in day
interrupt
out.
you, but this is in itself is an example of how India is changing. The visuals that you're watching right now, the red carpet, is outside something now that is called the Kartavya Bhavan. Okay, this is part of the new Central Secretariat. Last year, during the same telecast, sitting here with me, you would have been watching the same visuals, but those would have been outside North and South Block. This is a story of India's capex in every single sector. Not only we have new parliament building, the secretariats which have been combined into one for efficiency, brand new, are being built. So these visuals will change forever, literally. The building from where the finance minister sits and leaves has changed. The building to which she goes, which is the parliament, has changed. Telling a story of India's change as we speak. So if you're expecting to see the very familiar North and South Block, not happening. Gauravji, finish your thought.
So that's what I was thinking, that the situation as of now after the exporters is not very good. But yes, we are expecting that they will get a new business from across the world other than US. And we are hoping that GDP is doing good. But
Okay.
coming back to the Dr. Ranjit Mehta's point that MSME, if we talk about, if in India government takes care of the MSMEs well, because they are the major contributor of GDP in India, and if they get incentives down the line, actually implementable schemes, as Dr. Mehta was saying that though there is a scheme that till 10 crores exporters or MSMEs can get a loan interest free or collateral free. So but actually that is not happening down the line. So if that happens and the government takes care of these MSMEs, I think that will be a great boost to the
Okay, all right.
MSME
I want to
business.
discuss Gaurav one quick thing before we move on, because one of the sectors which has been worst hit has been gems and jewelry, right? For those people, you know that 90% of the world diamond trade went through India because all the cutting, polishing work, India had a monopoly literally all over the world. But there's a problem, and the problem is not just about Trump and tariffs, and the other problem is that lab grown diamonds, ladies and gentlemen, we also make lab grown diamonds here in India. Okay, so it's an industry we are involved in also. But the Chinese have pumped this industry so much that lab grown diamond prices are down 96%. No jeweler will buy a lab grown diamond these days because it's potentially worthless. Overall diamond prices have halved in the past few years. So the industry itself is in trouble, Gauravji. So is there another pie of the story that's hitting at least one of these sectors, which is gems and jewelry?
So actually, there what the India has to think of, because we are still, if we see the jewelers in India, they are still pushing up the natural diamond, and instead of focusing on these lab grown to scale up their facilities with production of lab-grown diamonds. We still have a very thought process that these actual diamonds are more precious and all. So we have to come up and see. China, in any case, has always hit on to the Indian markets to start with. So this is a very new concept which has grown with the lab-grown diamonds. I think India has to buck up if they want to actually deal with
Okay.
the economic, international pressures, and they have to increase their production, which is not yet at par with
Yeah,
the
but
Chinese.
let's not start investing in more lab-grown diamonds. It's become worthless. There is no industrial demand for it. Doesn't exist at that scale. 96% price drop. If it happened in any other industry, that would be catastrophic. That would be the end of the industry. 96% price drop, not little bit. And diamonds, the only reason the jewelry industry is still okay, and trust me, for jewelers, rise in gold prices not necessarily benefiting them unless they've been sitting on inventory, because in the end they only make a percentage on the price when they charge for making it. It helps, but not really. So if you thought, oh, the jewelers must be making so much money because gold prices have gone up so much, not necessarily. So let me get a larger picture here. Sumit Peer has been listening in very patiently. Sumit, let's take a quick thought before I take a break and come back. What's happening in the overall picture? Are we doing okay, and what are you watching out for?
Good morning, Rishabh ji. Thanks for having me on your show. A pleasure as always. I think overall, if you look at the global economy, we are doing pretty much okay. If you look at the inflation, you look at foreign exchange reserves, you look at the tax structure, the amount of taxes we are collecting and we are going to cut. We are going to collect. You look at the GST collections. You look at the overall picture of the economy. It looks to be okay. Still, the GDP growth is quite, I would say, beautiful. Expected to do very well. Overall, the things are okay, but there are some pain areas which we need to work on. There are some turbulences which we need to just be ready for. I just want to make one or two points which are very important right now. When our friends here have been talking about how the MSMEs have been suffering, that's a reality. But the happy news is, with this FTA, for example, what we have done with EU today, there's an interesting aspect, that is the it opens a $10 trillion market a year, $10 trillion US market a year, because what EU imports is $7 trillion of goods and $3 trillion of services. That makes 10 trillion. The total GDP of EU is 21.1 trillion. So basically, at 0% import duty, which is going to be for 99% of the things in a year to come, that is the quantum of import market or the export market for us, which opens for goods and services. For example, I'll give you another example. Now with this EU FTA happening, for example, Pakistan and Bangladesh has been selling. Pakistan has been selling around $12 billion of garments into EU, and Bangladesh around $5 billion. They have got this GSP status, which allowed them to sell because they were literally paying no tax because of the GSP status, which we did not have. Now with this FTA done, immediately that 12 billion of Pakistan and around 6 billion of Bangladesh can immediately come to us in textiles. Leather, it's a few $1 billion, and especially talking of gems and jewelry. For EU, the market is right now is around a $10 billion, which was earlier be done by some players because we had to pay import duty. Now with this FTA coming in a year's time, we don't have to pay anything, and these are the kind of markets which are opening up. The American FTA, they are knocking our doors right today. They want to have FTA with us. Canada is there, and 14 more countries are there. We've already done 8. That if you look at the opportunity, if we can survive for another 1 year, hold it up. But the quantum of markets which is opening, the amount of market which is opening for a country with a GDP of $4.3 trillion.
Yes, I agree with you. The fundamental realignment is not happening. It's already happened. You mentioned Canada. The Canadian Prime Minister is expected to be in India very shortly, and a major trade deal with Canada, which after all the diplomatic issues that have happened is inevitable. I need to take a very quick break. As you're watching visuals of the finance minister, she's not going to parliament. She has to first go to Rashtrapati Bhavan to complete formalities there. Sid, when we come back, let's do a two-window of the last year exiting the old North Block and this year the brand new Kartavya Bhavan. And you can put that into context for our viewers also with something that you can upload. But we'll come back, take a short break. See you in a couple of minutes.
All right, with that, let me go across to my colleague Uday Pratap Singh for the latest news from Maharashtra.
Hello, my name is Uday Pratap Singh. You're watching Next in Maharashtra, a special segment where we bring you the latest from India's financial capital. Here's what's making the headlines in Maharashtra this week. In a massive economic triumph at Davos, Maharashtra has sealed MOUs worth 30 lakh crore rupees with preliminary talks for another 10 lakh crores, set to create 40 lakh jobs and build India's first innovation city near Mumbai. Watch this special report.
Maharashtra has achieved a massive milestone at the World Economic Forum 2026 in Davos, with Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis announcing that the state has signed MOUs worth Rs 30 lakh crores, with preliminary talks completed for an additional 10 lakh crores. This landmark haul is set to create up to 40 lakh jobs across the state. Highlighting the global appeal, 83% of these agreements involve foreign direct investment from 18 countries including the US, UK, Singapore, Japan, Switzerland, Germany, UAE and more. The remaining 16% focus on foreign technology partnerships spanning sectors like AI, quantum computing, data centers, green steel, health, food processing, fintech, logistics and urban development. In a game-changing announcement, Maharashtra will partner with Tata Group with an investment of over 1 lakh crores to build India's first innovation city near Mumbai, a future-ready hub for AI, semiconductors, GCCs and innovation. Detailed planning begins in the next 6 to 8 months.
पुढच्या काही वर्षांमध्ये आपण मुंबईला एक सर्क्युलर इकॉनॉमीचं शहर म्हणून त्या ठिकाणी पोर्ट्रे करू शकू आणि हेच टेम्पलेट आपण सगळ्या मोठ्या शहरांमध्ये पुण्यामध्ये नागपूरमध्ये सगळ्या मोठ्या शहरांमध्ये आपण नेऊ शकू अशा पद्धतीनं ही गुंतवणूक आपण या ठिकाणी केलेली आहे.
In other news, the Maharashtra government and MMRDA have signed deals with 11 global giants for the Raigad Pen Growth Center, the first city in 3rd Mumbai and a hub for tech, fintech and data centers. Unlocking over 1 lakh crore rupees in investments. Here's a report.
At the World Economic Forum 2026 in Davos, the Maharashtra government and the Mumbai Metropolitan Region Development Authority have signed MOUs with 11 leading global companies to develop the Raigad Pen Growth Center, envisioned as the first city in 3rd Mumbai and a next-generation hub for technology, fintech, data centers and global capability centers. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, who was present for the signings, extended a warm invitation to international investors to make Raigad Pen a premier business and investment destination. This strategic project, located just 15 to 20 kilometers from the Navi Mumbai International Airport, will be modeled after Mumbai's Bandra Kurla complex as a world-class international business district.
A lot of foreign companies have already shown their interest to invest in this new city, whereby it will host a lot of GCCs, it will host fintech, it will host. So it will be a very inclusive business district.
Meanwhile, at the Bombay High Court, Deputy CM Eknath Shinde honored CJI Justice Suryakant, highlighting Maharashtra's conviction rates soaring from 9% to 45% and pushing for 60%, while stressing justice, democracy and judicial infrastructure upgrades. Take a look.
In a grand felicitation ceremony at the Bombay High Court, Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde honored Chief Justice of India Justice Suryakant, emphasizing that as long as justice-loving people hold the highest positions, our constitution and democracy remain secure. The event celebrated India's robust judicial system and Maharashtra's strides in delivering swift justice to the common man. Deputy Chief Minister Shinde highlighted Maharashtra's remarkable progress in conviction rates, rising from a mere 9% to 45% under the current government, with ambitious plans to push it to 60%. He stressed the focus on bolstering judicial infrastructure, technology, and manpower to ensure faster trials and greater accountability in the system. The Deputy Chief Minister urged Justice Surya Kant to grant full bench status to the Kolhapur Circuit Bench during his tenure, fulfilling a long-standing demand that would bring quicker access to justice for people in Western Maharashtra. He praised Justice Surya Kant's inspiring journey from a middle-class Haryana family to the Supreme Court, calling it a beacon for youth through hard work, honesty, and dedication.
Emphasizing green energy leadership, CM Devendra Fadnavis has announced at the World Economic Forum 2026 that Maharashtra is on track for 16 gigawatt solar power by year-end through Asia's largest decentralized program, slashing farmer costs, cutting emissions and powering a sustainable future. Here's more.
Maharashtra is scripting a global success story in the renewable energy. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, speaking at the World Economic Forum 2026 in Davos, announced that the state is on track to achieve 16 gigawatts of solar power generation by the end of this year through Asia's largest decentralized solar energy program. The Chief Minister presented Maharashtra's transformative model, which has solarized every agriculture feeder independently, creating a dedicated company to supply clean power to farmers. This initiative has drastically reduced electricity cost for the farmers from rupees 8 per unit to less than rupees 3, easing the burden on industries and domestic consumers while saving billions in power purchase cost over the coming years. The Chief Minister emphasized how Maharashtra has reshaped its entire energy sector in under a decade, from just 13% renewables a few years ago to ambitious plans for 52% renewable power by 2030 and 45 gigawatt additional generation, including 70% solar generation by 2032.
These are this week's updates from Maharashtra. You're watching our special segment Next in Maharashtra. Stay tuned for more news.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. We're in the run-up to the budget speech of the Finance Minister for 2026 coming up very shortly. And one big thing that has already happened is, and it's visually anecdotal. There you go on your screens. Notice the difference between the left and the right. Left was last year, budget 2025, photo op, and this is what's happening, about to happen. And you will see dramatically that the location has changed, because no longer are we operating in North Block in the Finance Ministry as was since before independent India. We have shifted to the Kartavya Bhavan, which is the new Central Secretariat in New Delhi. So literally the building from which the Finance Minister will be departing, which is the new Finance Ministry, to the building that she will be going to, which is the new Parliament, fundamentally different. And it is a marked reminder of the very rapid infrastructural change. It's not all done yet, but we are seeing stuff happening that hasn't happened quite literally in decades. So the transition is not complete, but very shortly North Block is earmarked to become a museum open to the public. So you and I will be able to walk in to see historical galleries, and a more efficient workplace will be coming our way. And let me just absorb that with Sumit Peer for a quick second. Sumit, I know this is I'm trying to be whimsical and anecdotal here, but you know, pictures do speak 1,000 words.
But Rishabh ji, you're absolutely right, because if you look at this, Modi ji once said कि गुलामी की हर निशानी को मिटाना है. So that is, it's a part of the process which is happening. And overall, if we look at the infrastructure, not in Delhi, around the India, last 4 or 5 years, every year there has been a 15% spent on the infrastructure of India, increase from the last year. And in last 4 or 5 years, the spend on infrastructure has almost doubled in the Modi Sarkar. The biggest ever infrastructure spend has happened, and that infrastructure is now visible in every nook and corner of India. Moreover, you will see a new building, a new bridge, a new airport, a new railway station, a new medical college. Something on that side is coming up pretty much everywhere. And so Delhi has also got a new kind of a revamp. If you look at the Kartavya Path, you look at the Kartavya Bhavan, which we were rightly saying. So these things are all which are basically made in India. I mean, made in modern India. We have not inherited this from British. The new parliament, for that matter, there was a lot of hue and cry. Why do we need that? But nobody seems to be talking that. So slowly, India is moving to a place and creating an image of its own, creating an identity and a standard which is done in independent India by a powerful and a resilient India. So India is sending a message that India has lived through the past, which we have no problem on, but new India under the current leadership wants to make a mark at the international stage. I mean, that is where the vision seems to be, that is where the mission seems to be, and that is where the budget, I think, is going to be. And what I'll be expecting is, again, the infrastructure push will continue, because what Nirmala ji said in the economic survey is that mere infrastructure push created, these 60 million jobs. So a lot of jobs.
No, but I know I'm being parochial, okay, but I would remember, Sumit would remember, know this, and let's be honest, I'm not speaking from them, but everybody else sitting in this conversation with me would be aware of this. There would be a whole host of staff in all these ministries who would walk in the morning, sign their attendance in the register, walk straight back outside, sit in the lawn in nice winter sunshine, which is what is going to happen today, and be playing cards. Okay, everybody smiling slightly. Even those who probably deal with government regularly wouldn't want to say it on television for show, but that's the truism. Welcome to the world of biometric attendance. To exit the building, you have to now scan out. So that doesn't mean everything changes. The sheer fact of all the ministries being in just 2 buildings now, not dotted all over this bhavan and that bhavan and here and there and everywhere, just being in 2 ministries with state-of-the-art infrastructure, meeting rooms, internet facilities. I mean, this part of Delhi was built 30 years before independence. Okay, I mean, 1913, when all these buildings were being constructed. Everything else, the lifts, the HVAC systems, the internet systems, the security systems, CCTV cameras, everything else had to then be sellotaped on top. Completely inefficient. Very pretty places, very nice, but completely inefficient for the work of modern government. And that's a fundamental change, and it's very visually being told here. The old parliament, again, very nostalgic. If you've been the parliamentary reporter for 30 years, of course you're nostalgic about it. But it was falling apart. Let's accept it. So something fundamental is changing, and the entire map of the Prime Minister's office is next. The Prime Minister's residence and the Prime Minister's office are going to be promulgated into one entity. So that practically means more efficiency, less travel times, less road blockades for the PM's cavalcade just to go from LKM to South Block. All these practicalities make a difference in running a corporate entity, running it efficiently, running it well. All the things that everybody has to deal with, Sumit has to deal with, I have to deal with, is managing human resources, making sure everybody comes on time, that attendances are calculated, leaves are automated, HR systems are not registers, entry is access restricted, changing. You can see it happening. Completely brand spanking new building at the Kartavya Bhavan, telling that story. Okay, let's pick up the rough and tumble of it. I want to get into perspective before I discuss budgetary expectations, because we're not expecting something dramatic. The reason we don't expect something dramatic is a good thing. because the budgetary exercises are about the devil in the detail, about themes, because a lot of the information is shared with us. The policy making happens all year around as it should. So let me get Navneet Damani into this conversation. Navneet ji, before I get into the budget per se, let us put in place the larger picture. India GDP seems to be doing fine, inflation seems to be doing fine, forex reserves are pretty good at $700 billion, fiscal deficit seems to be under control, everything seems to be under control. We are looking good as a country. But most of us can't figure out that how are the gold prices where they are, what the heck is happening in the silver markets, okay, where it's doubling then crashing. We've seen a $400 billion loss in Microsoft shares yesterday night. Many people are saying AI bubble is a real thing. There is then I'm not even mentioning the Trump tariffs and the chaos that engenders. Is there a global risk? What is going on?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And until Thursday, nobody was talking about these kind of risks, these kind of parameters, or these kind of fluctuation. Every alternate day, you were seeing gold and silver prices go by about 3% to 6%. People were making money, and everybody was comfortable. Suddenly, handbrakes were pulled in a fast-speeding car Thursday evening, and Thursday and Friday, you saw a carnage across commodities, not only just gold and silver, but across industrial metals as well. So something which has gone up vertically of 300% without any reasonable correction, then at least some point in time, velocity or gravity will come into picture, and that is exactly what happened in silver. It corrected about 35, 32 odd percent from peak, and nothing much has changed in the fundamental. Nothing changed from 3 lakh to 4 lakh, and from 4 lakh back to 3 lakh. On the ground level, nothing much has changed. The only thing that has changed is Fed has announced a new chief guard, and secondly, the biggest thing that China has started to re-export silver, which they were holding for a brief period of time. Overall, it looks like the world is, or probably India is now accustomed to higher prices. They've got absorbed to higher prices. We imported about 5,000 tons of silver in 2025. But in 2024-25 and 2025-26 number is estimated to be upwards of 8,000 tons. Mind you, that point in time, silver was $20, and this time the average could be about $60-65.
Okay.
So prices have gone.
Okay,
3x.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have breaking news coming in the context, and this is interesting because it's happening just a couple of hours before the budget speech. Yes, it's Donald J. Trump. And what's he had to say? Let me quote this. US President Donald J. Trump says, and I'm quoting, "China is welcome to come in and make a great deal on oil. We've already made a deal. India is coming in and they are going to be buying Venezuelan oil as opposed to buying it from Iran. So we've already made the concept of the deal." Now we are discussing commodity prices, and the reason, ladies and gentlemen, gold is spiking the way it has is because global central banks, not you and me, not mummy papa, not dadu dadi, have not doubled and tripled the gold prices. Let's listen into what Donald Trump has to say. Then I'm going to pick Navneetji's mind on this.
For a short period of time. Sir, do you think China's going to get their money back from all the money they lent to Venezuela for oil?
I don't know anything about that, but I'll tell you what, China is welcome to come in and would make a great deal on oil. You know, we welcome China. We've already made a deal. India is coming in, and they're going to be buying Venezuelan oil as opposed to buying it from Iran. So we've already made that deal.
Okay, there you heard Donald J. Trump, and does he move the markets? Yes, we are at just under $70 a barrel for Brent crude. And let me get Navneetji back into the conversation into that context. Navneetji, let's pick on that subject point, oil first. $70 a barrel seems okay. Prices have been stable and in fact trending lower. That's generally good news for an oil importing economy. So in that segment of the global trade, is everything okay? In fact, perhaps good that Donald Trump has done what he's done in Venezuela?
Well, absolutely. It's a positive sentiment or positive step towards getting oil back on shore. Primarily, we were hit hard because of massive imports of gold and silver. But to saving grace, oil prices were down 17-18 points in the previous year. Start of this year, we've seen a couple of issues with Venezuela, then Iran, and prices have moved up by 10% in the last 20-25 days as we speak. So typically any oil which is coming at a cheaper rate, which was predominantly coming from Russia, could now start to come from Venezuela or other parts of the world, will be a welcome move because we are largely an import-driven economy, and this could kind of balance the current account deficit at this point in
Okay,
time.
so let me
because
put these things into context. The global petrodollar economy, okay, the base price is Brent crude, okay, currently just under $70 a barrel. Now, we don't know the exact figures per barrel, but I can safely tell you that the Russian oil that was being procured, not only by us, but by a lot of countries, including the gas, which is still being procured by the European Union, was happening at a deep discount to the Brent crude rate. So, it was much cheaper. I am also drawing an assumption that the Iranian oil, which whatever amounts were being imported, it's not zero, was also much cheaper than the Brent crude rate. So, India was getting a good deal over here. Now, Donald Trump is saying that they are offering us a deal on Venezuelan oil and we've accepted. Whether we have or not, I don't know, because I have to take what Donald Trump says with a pinch of salt, given what's been going on. But yes, oil shock in the market doesn't seem to be the worrying aspect. But there is a worrying aspect, Navdeep ji, and it's related to gold prices, because the global wisdom seems to be that a fundamental reshift is happening, that central banks, including ours, are exiting US bonds, US treasuries, and instead procuring gold, and not only procuring gold, physically shifting gold into sovereign territories. That's a huge change that we've never seen in our lifetime, sir. Is that a worrying sign or is that a healthy sign?
Well, absolutely. Since the last couple of years, or ever since President Trump is on the hot seat, we've seen time and again that there is a tactical shift from US dollar, from US Treasury bonds towards hard asset, which could help you in terms of inflationary concerns and probably in terms of geopolitical concerns. Today, Russia has been able to fight the war that it has been fighting because they've built a lot of ammunition over the last 10 years regards to having a lot of gold in their books. China also similarly has bought a lot of gold in their bank treasury. India typically has reasonable amount of gold in the treasury, but we've been one of the largest importer of gold, and that is the Indian women which is buying gold. It is not the central banks which are buying gold. Whatever shift we are seeing from abroad to India is typically our gold, our Indian dominated gold, lying in the vaults of UK, which has been gradually getting migrated to India. It's not a fresh purchase that we're talking about. It's a already existing purchase many years back, where we were not competent enough to keep our gold safe, and it was lying in UK vaults, now getting back shifted to India. So from that perspective, gold prices going higher is definitely a concern as well as a boon for India, because we've been one of the largest importers for many years now. So we have a reasonable war chest in terms of gold reserves, but definitely it is impacting our current account deficit, our balance.
Okay, but are we heading, sir? Are we heading, as many people suspect, that in this de-dollarification, which isn't going to happen next year, it's not going to happen in the next 2 years, it's only going to be happening gradually, but are we heading into a place where our foreign exchange reserves, we would prefer, are backed by solid gold, not necessarily by dollars?
Well, Japan has done that in the last 1 year. China has done that. India, to an extent, have done that. That they've migrated from US Treasury bonds to India, because President Trump is arm twisting these nations. And what better alternate to move away from their currency, their hard-earned assets, towards something like gold and something like silver, which is actually having a currency exchange value across the globe. So that has been the trend for the last 6 months. And that will continue to be the dominating trend for the next few years as well.
Okay, so just hold your thought. Now, Sumit, let me get you in on this, because whether we like it or not, okay, I'm in fact very grateful to Donald Trump, because it is thanks to Donald Trump that India and Europe now have an FTA. It wasn't going to happen. 2 decades we've been negotiating it, because let me be honest, the Europeans were never interested in the FTA. Okay. European attitudes have dramatically changed. British attitudes have dramatically changed, and Donald Trump is to thank for that across the board. And the stunt on Greenland and what happened in Davos was that last, if anybody had any doubts, that was it. So all the FTAs have happened thanks to him. But Sumit, I have a fundamental question. We are now in the middle of the most dramatic global financial war. It's already started with the de-dollarification. The world system as we know it, established in Bretton Woods immediately after the Second World War in 1949, is going through a fundamental reset. Now, can we sit here and think that this fundamental reset is going to happen smoothly and no issues are going to take place and none of those issues are going to burn us?
I think, Rishabh the first and important aspect is, we are being slowly gearing up for that. The reset is evident it is going to happen. Now, if you look at, for example, in BRICS, India has proposed an alternate local currency system through a digital currency, through digital rupee, digital yuan, and everybody's digital currency. We are not talking of an alternate BRICS currency, but we are talking of a mutually settling mechanism with our digital currencies that Bharat is taking the lead on, India is taking the lead on. When this transition happens, I'll quote Donald Trump, he was very clear, he will not let the dollar dominance go, and they will go to any extent to stop that, because look at the cumulative debt, look at how they have been kind of ruling the world with this dollar dominance. Still 70% of the reserves in the world are in dollars. Around 70% of the international trade still happens in dollars. Yes, the India local currencies have come up. India is trying to do a lot of business in the local currency. That is mitigating the risk, because if you look at the world, it's highly leveraged. $315 trillion of debt is the global debt, at $110 trillion of GDP. Now, all this debt is in US dollars. So if the American monetization policy of the dollar shakes, has the capability as on today to shake the financial systems of the entire world. So while you do this transition, you have to do it very slowly, very smoothly, and make sure that, we are not the eventual casualty. Because when you hold $700 billion of foreign exchange reserves, which are, I think, number 4th in the world today, so you are not the person who wants to, for the de-dollarization or anything to happen. You are the people who want these transitions to happen smoothly. And I'll quote Dr. Jaishankar. He went to US and he clearly said, we are not interested in a BRICS currency, or we are not interested in de-dollarization. But yes, India is pushing more of its local currency. India is doing a more of local trading and with its own currency, and with the opening of
that's sovereign security, and that lesson has been learned. And if you needed a lesson, it was learned immediately by Russia, that if you held monies in dollars, the Americans could wake up one fine day and say, we seize the money. Okay?
Correct.
The $300 billion, they just said, sorry, bank account closed. If your gold, you owned it, but it was lying in somebody else's, in this case, in a bank account in London, and the reason it's put in London because the argument was that it's held there, then it's easier to trade, it's easier to leverage, it's easier to monetize against. But then they can say, no, sorry, this is now our gold. We are seizing it until we decide to. So it's weaponization on the financial systems. All the international transactions, every one of them, whether they are government or you and I, happen through two servers. One is in North America and one is in Brussels. It's called SWIFT, okay, SWIFT. There are only two SWIFT servers. So all the money transactions happen through these two SWIFT servers. And then all the transactions that you and I do were happening either through Visa or MasterCard with a couple of other companies, American Express, others, but mostly Visa and MasterCard. Now you got RuPay, okay. So your transactions don't go through American servers if you're on a RuPay card. These are major pivotal changes here that are taking place, and that is more about security and diversification, practicality, sovereignty than perhaps anything that we will see tangibly change. But there is a global context here. So let me put that context and put that to Gaurav Agarwal. Gaurav Agarwal, one other thematic, I mentioned this when we started this conversation. If you look at the US markets, currently stable, Nasdaq is pretty okay. But Microsoft down $400 billion in a single day of trading. The assumption is that there is some bubble which is formed in the US. Are you concerned?
Of course, see, we are an economy that we are being obviously in the world. So obviously, it is a major concern for the Indian economy. But I don't see that's a long-term pressure which would be there, and there will be certain checks which will be coming up. And I think it is a short-term pressure which is building up, and it should be rectified in the going months to come ahead. So that is what I can believe, that the Indian market will with a good, as you already said, with a good performance we are doing. So Indian market is obviously as of now being impacted, but in the long term, I don't think there are long-term pressures.
So
will
you're
be
not
there.
expecting any
That is what
shock. You're not expecting a dot-com bubble
Because now,
burst
yes,
or a
there is a shock,
2008
but
financial
not.
crisis. You're not expecting any shock right now.
I don't think so, because our Indian economy is strong enough to take all these shocks. We have already taken these shocks, but as of long term, I don't see that there will be any
No, no,
pressure.
I'm not. Yeah, but in the long term, we are all okay. But also in the long term, as the aphorism goes, we're all dead. So we have to think about this year. I've lived through 2008. I was that person who, when you turn 21, then you start your 5,000 rupee EMI in a mutual fund, because that's the responsible thing to do. And saw the stock market boom all the way till 2008, and said the Indian GDP is going to do well. As it was then, we did grow at 7-8%, and then 2008 happened. And let's not kid ourselves. Everything crashed, including our stock markets, and it did damage our economy pretty badly. So is there a bubble? I can't predict it. Does it feel like one? Does doubling of gold prices feel like a bubble? Does tripling of silver prices feel like a bubble? Does $1.4 trillion of investment commitments by a single company, which produces nothing profitable, called OpenAI, feel like a bubble? Yes, it does. Does it feel like a bubble? Yes, it does. But I'm not an expert. Sumit, I'm going to argue the other side of the picture, and I'm going to play devil's advocate. Donald Trump can tell you that oil prices are not only stable but have come down since he took over as president. That the US markets are not only stable, they have been near their record highs. That US GDP growth is pretty good for a large economy. That we